Good morning and welcome to Cuyahoga County's Community Development Committee. It is Monday, April 15th, 2024. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Ms. Stevens?
Present.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent at the moment. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Gallagher is absent. Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Madam Chair, we do not have a quorum, but let the record reflect that Councilmember Conwell is also in attendance, and in accordance with Rule 12F of the County Council Rules, Council President Jones has appointed Councilmember Conwell as member pro tem of the Community Development Committee. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman, for being willing to be a pro tem, i.e. a ringer for us this morning.
You're welcome.
If you would, do we have public comment this morning, Madam Clerk?
No, no one has signed in.
Okay. We have minutes from March 18th. Are there any corrections or comments from either of my colleagues?
No.
Hearing none, can I have a motion in favor of approval of these minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, these minutes are approved. Madam Clerk, it's back at you.
Resolution 2024-0127, making an award on requisition 8737 to Emerald Development and Economic Network Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $7,925,678 for the acquisition and construction of the Norma Herr II non-congregate shelter project for the period May 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Committee. Sarah Parks Jackson, Director, Department of Housing and Community Development, asking your approval of a grant to Eden for the amount of $7,925,678 for the project known as Norma Herr II. I am going to go through the Home ARP funding, which is the funding we are using for this project, and then I will ask Elaine Gemmel and Mr. Richard Carr to come forward from Eden to talk to you about the project. And then lastly, Director Melissa Sirac and David Merriman will come forward.
Before you leave, Madam Director, could you tell me what the breakdown between HOME is and ARPA? Because I thought they were two separate funding sources. HOME was continuous via HUD, and ARPA was created as a residual, to clean up the residual impact of COVID.
The Home Investment Partnership Act Fund, which we affectionately call HOME, is our federal allocation that we get annually, generally about $3.1 million, which we are looking for any day now since Congress finally approved the budget. Home ARP was a special allocation from the American Rescue Plan that these funds went to HUD for the specific purpose of them being included as a home investment partnership program, therefore the name Home ARP. This is one-time money that we will not see
And what was
again.
what was our allocation from Home ARP?
Home ARP allocation total amount was $9,879,000.
So 100% of the 7.9 is Home ARP?
Yes.
And what are we doing with the residual close to 2 million?
Because we are a home consortium with members Cleveland Heights, Lakewood, Parma, and Euclid, the cities of Lakewood and the cities of Euclid and the city of Euclid decided to use their allocation of this Home ARP fund to provide a tenant-based rental assistance program in their cities following the HUD, the Home ARP guidelines.
And what did Cleveland Heights do?
Cleveland Heights and the city of Parma, when I called and said, can we keep your money, please? They both agreed that we could keep their funds and use them for the projects that we were going to do with the Home ARP money.
Okay. I do understand the significance of this project. I just wanted to understand the funding sources. Thank you.
You are welcome. So when this funding was allocated, it was $5 billion in ARPA funds that was allocated to HUD to distribute, and of course, we got 9.879,339. The funding source is provided to address the need for homelessness assistance and supportive services. And of course, HUD was given this money to be administered through HOME to perform 4 activities that must primarily benefit qualifying individuals and families who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, or in other vulnerable populations. They allowed us to do four different activities were acceptable: development and support of affordable housing, tenant-based rental assistance, provision of supportive housing, and acquisition and development of non-congregate shelter units. In September of 2021, we signed our funding agreement. January of 2022, the department participated with Health and Human Services Department and the Department of Homeless Services for a request for proposals for alternate housing. And this project was part of that RFP process, and therefore we selected it as a project that we could fund. One of the, or several of the criteria, I should say, for individuals or families that are housed with these funds is that they must be homeless, at risk of homelessness, fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking, part of other populations where providing supportive services or assistance would prevent a family's homelessness or would serve those with the greatest risk of housing instability, or veterans and families that include a veteran family member that meet the criteria in the 1 through 4 that were provided above. So because we have to benefit a qualifying population through the 4 eligible activities, we picked the non-congregate shelter housing because we know that the need exists for non-congregate shelter housing, and it meets the requirement. Because as we saw in COVID, there were not places for folks to go where they could be isolated from others. These funds and this Norma Hart 2 project will allow, should something like that happen again, or just someone has the flu or something else that's contagious, where they will not be in congregate quarters. What HUD has said with this funds is that non-congregate actually means that it is a separate room. I call it a dorm room, and it must have a sanitary facility. And the sanitary facility is based on the code in the city in which the property will be built. So whatever Cleveland City Code says a sanitary facility is, each one of those rooms, if you will, must have that. So next I'm going to ask if you have,
Point of clarification, the sanitary facility, is that more or less a sink and a toilet, or does it include a shower and a tub?
I'm going to let Richard Carr from Eden
Okay.
answer that, because I did not get into the depths.
Well, you knew we were gonna wanna know that.
That's
or
why
at least
Richard
I
is
was
here.
Gonna wanna know that.
That's
Okay.
why I brought back
So,
up.
welcome, well, would you bring the detail guy up, please?
Sure, I will.
Sarah. It is a shower. It is a
Excuse me, could you
toilet.
state your name for the
I'm
record,
sorry.
please? Thank you.
What was that?
If you could state your name for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Richard Carr. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development Construction for Emerald Development. So the definition is each one of the living units will have a shower, a toilet, and a sink.
Thank you. Well, while you're there, talk to us about the total project cost on this, unless they decided they wanted to do the full presentation, because I'm happy to skip to the meaty parts.
I was going to introduce Elaine. Richard, stay here, and they have a presentation for you. We'll go through additional details.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
Good morning. My name's Elaine Gimmel, and I'm the Executive Director of Eden. We had forwarded a PowerPoint presentation. Here we go.
I cheated and looked at certain pieces
Oh,
of it.
well, and again, we're probably not going to go into every single detail of the slide. We wanted to make sure that you had a comprehensive explanation of the entire project that we are proposing today. So just a little history, Eden acquired 2219, 2227 Payne, which is currently the Norma Hare Women's Center, in 2003. The city and county had each owned one of the buildings and no longer wanted to, so approached Eden. We said, yes, we would take it. We've since done 2 rounds of renovations, 2010 and 14, to raise funds. We had to do that both times because we are the owner, and the original capacity was supposed to be 130 beds. So we are trying to align the shelter with Goal 2 of the Cuyahoga County's Strategic Action Plan for Homelessness to improve the experience of persons in crisis housing. Norma Hare is being redeveloped into non-congregate, which is the home ARP dollars are being used for that, and the current Payne Avenue will be semi-congregate. The redevelopment plan has been in process since 2021, working with Eden, the YWCA, Cuyahoga County, and the City of Cleveland. The property is going to be expanded to include 2 buildings, a courtyard, and a connector. Sarah already talked about the populations that qualify for the home ARP. Again, this is just brief. Homeless, persons at risk of homelessness, persons fleeing DV, sexual assault and trafficking, other populations, which would be families requiring services and housing assistance to prevent homelessness, and then veterans or veterans' families having to meet one of the other 4 qualifying populations. So the referral preferences for this particular building, the referral method will be coordinated entry because it's already in place. They will be using the home ARP requirements, and all the populations eligible for the activity will be included in the coordinated entry process. We typically don't turn people away from shelter, and I expect the same thing will happen moving forward. But we do have 2 preferences for the non-congregate, and it is homeless persons, giving them priority, as well as persons fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking. And then this is the development, and I'm going to have Richard talk about this. I do just want to say that Richard is our Director of Real Estate Development and Construction. He's been with Eden for 10 years, so he has pretty extensive knowledge of construction projects. He's worked in completing 6 of our permanent supported housing buildings, as well as we have 3 more in the development phase. We've also done new construction through our scattered site portfolio of properties, as well as rehab. So again, he has extensive experience with construction and working with general contractors, and so he will be the lead on this. We also have a construction manager as part of our real estate development group, and we have a development project manager. We also will be working with Drake Construction on this project. They are a neighbor of the shelter currently, and Heidi, DeFrancisco, and Siebold, also known as HD&S, is the architect for this development. Richard, do you want to talk about? Okay.
So currently, Payne Avenue is under construction. We're adding an elevator addition and lobby improvements to the building. That money was awarded through $3.5 million of city ESG dollars. In addition to that, because that particular project is not going to consume the entire breadth of the $3.5 million, we were able to pre-purchase a number of building products in connection with the proposed rehabilitation for Norma Hare that's going to be up and coming. So we rented a warehouse to store all these materials. We pre-purchased an elevator. We pre-purchased doors, frames, hardware, drywall, HVAC equipment, electrical switch gears, lighting, and all kinds of stuff in preparation for the rehab that's going to be up and coming. We have the project's broken down into a couple of different scenarios. It's more of a relocation project than it is a construction-driven timeline. So there's multiple moving parts in connection with that. So it has to do with the acquisition of a building on Walton Avenue that we just acquired last week, which is known as 2710 Walton. That building right there is going to undergo some capital improvements and a little bit of renovation in order to create a congregate shelter environment. And just to FYI, Madam Chair, the total development costs are $24.7 million. So the way this works, thank you, Elaine. The way this is going to work is that we are going to rehab the Walton Avenue property. We started construction today. It's a 4-month duration. We submitted a relocation plan in accordance with the URA to the city of Cleveland, which was approved on Friday of last week. Once we're finished with that building and we get a decent, safe, and sanitary inspection, we will move 102 guests from the existing Norma Herb building into Walton Avenue. We will move not only the people, but we'll also move the beds and the mattresses and a portion of the Wise office equipment in order for them to run that facility. So that facility will be a fully working homeless shelter. It will have a fully working kitchen. It'll have bathrooms. It'll meet building code, and it'll be operate until we're finished with the Norma Herb building. Our next move is the demolition and reconstruction of the 1600 East 23rd Street building, which is what this application for this $7.9 million funding is for. That project is expected to take about 14 months. It's all new construction. It's a structural steel 2-story building. We currently have all our costs in alignment at this point in time. And in addition to that, we have a building permit. So there'll be guests still at Norma Herb during the process. Once Walton is finished and the guests move out of Walton, we will turn around and we'll rehab the basement area at Norma Herb. That money, which is $1.1 million, has been committed by the city. It's through their CV CARES Act dollars. And that project right there will probably take around 10 months. So we'll have a vacant basement from when the guests move to Walton. We'll go ahead and we'll renovate the bottom basement to be semi-congregate shelter. In the same time that that's going on, we'll have the Zippity Print building or the 1600 East 23rd Street building going on under construction. That funding will be coming from the county, and then there's a portion of the funding coming from the city of Cleveland through their home ARPA allocation as well. There's $5.6 million allocated for that. That project, again, is expected to take 14 months. Once that project's finished, we will relocate the guests out of Norma Herb to empty Norma Herb in its entirety and have the Y operate out of the 1600 building to continue housing the homeless people in the city of Cleveland, homeless guests, I'm sorry. We will turn around and we'll rehab Norma Herb to the greatest extent that the plans allow, which is going to be congregate and semi-congregate living. That project is expected to take 12 months. We're expecting to wrap up the entire redevelopment of Norma Herb, including the 1600, the connector, and the Norma Herb rehab by December 31st, 2026. So with that being said, you'll see a copy of the budget for 1600 East 23rd Street in the Capitol stack. Excuse me. So at the top is the home ARP allocation from the county. The city is also at the top. We submitted an application to the state senate for one-time community investment funds for $844,000. It's a bifurcated ask. It's split between 1600 East 23rd Street and Norma Herb. And that should round up our funding. You'll see our sources and uses. We're projecting the 1600 East 23rd Street to be about $16.1 million. You can see the uses of the dollars over on the right-hand side of the worksheet. On the next page is 2219 Payne. Once again, you'll see a couple tranches of city funding. There's some county capital in it from the 8737 grant. Eden has put in some sponsor equity. Huntington Bank has committed some sponsor equity. We secured a grant from Federal Home Loan Bank of Cincinnati through their AHP application for homeless shelter
So
for $1 million. I'm sorry?
Received a commitment last year from them?
Correct, yes.
And then which Senate district is this in?
This one right here, go ahead.
It's Nikki Antonio's.
Okay, so Nikki is following up on your Senate commitment, because you have 2.4 in one project and 8.4 in another,
Correct.
so almost
3.2 million, yes. Yep. If in fact that there's some issue with that, we are applying to ODOD in May of this year when they release an application for their particular type of funding. So we're trying to play to make sure that we have the project fully committed.
So you
And
have
that's
a
why you'll
backup
see the
plan.
application pending on the worksheet, yes.
thank you.
So we're just trying to make sure we fill our gap. Go ahead.
So the Ohio Department of Development application was supposed to have been coming out since last year. And so we have been following up on it. They're probably tired of hearing from us, but we just wanted to, make sure that we had a backup plan. And so when we found out that these one-time dollars were coming available through the state, we applied for them. And then we will still apply through ODOD, hopefully when that comes out next month, again, just to make sure that we have the dollars needed.
Okay, thank you.
And this capital stack amounts to about 8.3 million. That'll add up to the $24.7 million total development cost. Some of our project initiatives are pretty strong. You know, we really want to create a decent, safe, and sanitary environment for the guests that'll reside. As Sarah stated, there will be isolation rooms in the building for people that have an infectious disease. The way the building is set up is that you will enter the building on Payne Avenue. This is where the security system will be. You'll transverse through the connector into East 23rd Street. The Y will have bifurcated staff between the Payne Avenue and the East 23rd. There's a generous location for them to have their meals. There's also computer labs inside of the East 23rd Street for them to access information to job search and do whatever. Let's see. There certainly will be a sense of dignity that they have because there'll be in individual rooms with individual showers and individual sinks. It's underneath a high security area. I can't think of anything else that we should mention. I don't know if you guys have any questions, but go ahead.
We probably have a few questions.
Yeah.
But I think you've covered a majority of the most important issues. You've got a substantial piece of your capital stack together. You've got plans. You've pre-ordered, which I strongly recommend in this world, because I've got a project I never would have been able to finish if I hadn't pre-ordered everything. And so I think this looks good. Well, let's see if my colleagues have questions. Typically, Councilwoman Conwell, as Richard knows, she made me call him, was that 2 weeks ago? Because she's like, what about their elevator? I'm like, well, let's look at their permit. So we were looking at your permit for you because we were, going to try and play heavy, but we didn't need to. We were quite pleased that you'd already done your homework, as you noticed from the phone call. Councilwoman Conwell?
Thank you. Through the chair to, I guess in general, the reporting of the dollars spent in this total contract are sent to which county department? Who will be monitoring the reporting of the funds being spent?
Go ahead, Julie.
That's okay. So for this contract, it would be through Sarah's department.
Okay.
And then for the city, it goes through their community development. And then for the 8737, that goes through the Office of Homeless Services.
Okay. And the guests, just want to follow up on what Richard said. The guests, are they going to need to go through the Norma Hurd 1 building in order to access? So if we have families and males, will that present a problem? Probably won't, because they'll have their individual rooms then. It won't be.
Correct, yes, because the 1,600 will be fully non-congregate, so we even added some rooms that had multiple beds for if there were couples or families to that, but they would go from that security through the connector into the building that is completely non-congregate. The Payne Avenue site, there will be some non-congregate suites as well as there will be some congregate, but it'll only be 2 people sharing a room. It'll be no more than that.
And just to go back to the elevator, because I'm really concerned about the elevator. So usually when you do a project or whatever, whether you're buying a home, you always get somebody for your own benefit. You have the city there, but you want somebody on your side to tell you, are you going to hire somebody or have somebody for that, no matter what the city, or whoever's putting in the elevator, that we have somebody representing us, or at least Eden, and that the elevator's put in correctly?
Yes, so we'll have, the HDNS Architects is the inspecting arm. We also hired a third-party inspector, and we'll do some very rigorous inspections throughout the process, and certainly the
You
city.
had 3 people. You have Drake Construction. You have the architect, and they both have to sign off on it by law. And then they have a third-party construction management, and that company's name I didn't remember.
We'll probably use ECS, which is a third-party inspecting agency that will provide inspections. And not only that, well, on the elevator, but they'll also provide inspections for foundations and concrete and masonry and structural steel and connections and stuff like that. So it'll be pretty well inspected and documented throughout the process.
And how long is that bonded for or permitted for?
Well, we literally picked up the permit Thursday, I think, for the 1600 building. It's good for a year, so we're hoping to pull the trigger when we get all the funding under contract, which is in process.
Madam Chair, if I may, the Department of Housing and Community Development will also have an inspector assigned to the project. His name is Ron Angelo. Ron's been with us for a while. He has taught. He's done a lot of things. Richard's already worked with Ron, so we are putting him together with Eden to make sure that everything that needs to be done gets done.
And just for the audience sake, why is she so worried about elevators? I just wanted to put on record that, all 3 organizations that are running this shelter collectively together do not have money to fix an elevator, which is going to be used very frequently. So we want to make sure that it's running well and placed in correctly, because I know elevators, if they're not put in correctly, it's a nightmare for those that own them. So
Yeah, we appreciate that. The last phone call conversation that we had, Madam Chair and Councilwoman, is that we went back to double check with Schindler, who's the elevator company, and make sure that we had vandal-resistant buttons, not only inside the cab, but also on the call stations outside, and confirmed that we did procure an elevator with vandal-resistant features. So
thank you. I don't want to ever have a committee on this elevator. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 102 people or the 102 guests that might have to be moved, is there 102? Is there more than 102? Is there room for everybody to be moved while this is being done?
Yes, Walton Avenue only has the capacity for 102, so the remaining guests will stay at the Payne Avenue site. And I know that the census has reduced recently, so we will continue to monitor that with the YWCA. Our goal is to try to get people into housing, so they've been doing a good job of using the incentives that happen, as well as the openings within our PSH portfolio and other vouchers that are available.
All right.
What's the, to follow up on my colleague's question, approximately how many people do you average in a night?
I'm going to take a guess at this because I don't get the census regularly, but I'm going to guess it's probably around 190 right now. It has been over 200, though, for sure.
He's absolutely right. This is an important number for us. During the time of construction, it's clear that there's 102 one place, but will we be able to keep up to another 100, at least reasonably, at the existing facility?
I would say yes, because we're going to keep the remaining beds that we're not moving. Right now, we have about 175 beds, but that doesn't include any like mats or overflow.
Okay.
So there would be the ability for those 102, the remaining out of that 175, as well as mats for overflow. But again, we've been, I think, under 200 recently, which we hope that will continue.
What do you attribute to the census numbers being down? Have we done something proactive someplace else that helps move people out of the shelters?
I believe that the Y has been accessing the incentive funds that are available. So I think that has been one of the key features. Eden staff has also been meeting with the Y staff and has been to the shelter to do presentations because we have some vacancies within the PSH portfolio. So again, trying to encourage applications to go through, especially our CMHA subsidized units. The process is a little different than our continuum of care. And so making sure that the Y and the guests know how to access those resources to get them into those units. And I don't know, I know Director Sarek is here, if she has any other additional reasons why it may have gone down recently.
Another question, Mr. Kelly? Like, for the record, I'd like to let the clerk know that Councilwoman Sunny Simon has joined us. Councilwoman Simon, do you have any questions about the HER facility?
I don't. I mean, it sounds like we're on a good trend, though, from what I'm hearing.
It's tracking really
Positive.
well.
Yep.
Madam Chair,
yes.
before we conclude, I'd like to bring Director Sirak and Merriman forward.
Director Sirak, are you going to have my census information for me?
Councilwoman, I did reach out to get the census.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be live time.
Director.
So, David Merriman, Director of Health and Human Services. I'm here with Director Melissa Sirak. I'm just going to be very brief. I first want to thank you, Councilwoman and the Chair, for hearing this item today and for your leadership on a community response to a community problem. I have to acknowledge that my chair, Councilwoman Yvonne Conwell, is the pinch hitter, but also...
Oh, she's all over this, please.
She is. We're clear on that, and she is with us on a regular basis, ensuring progress is occurring and the project management is up to code. And then lastly, I just want to take a second and thank Sarah Parks Jackson for her leadership and support. We understand that this project could not exist without that. And I know that there has been a lot of work for years between the Office of Homeless Services and Economic Development and Community Development, but I just would say that there has never been a time that there has been more communication between Health and Human Services and the department related to housing. I think this has become one of the defining issues, and there's many great things to come. And so I want to thank Sarah for that. But I want to turn it over.
Good morning, Melissa Sirak, Director of the Office of Homeless Services. I am waiting on the census information. I can't say prior to the influx and increase at Norma Hare, the average is about 180 ladies. For many years, they've operated, above the census that we typically anticipate.
So what kinds of things are you doing with the Y to help reduce this census?
Sure.
Because
So-
that's a goal for all of us.
Absolutely. So Elaine Gimmel had hit the nail on the head. The county council here had approved $25,000 for our office to award directly to the YWCA for housing incentives. So their case managers worked directly with the ladies staying at Norma Hare for $600 incentive, working to identify alternative places to go, whether it's family or friends, and having some financial assistance often increases the likelihood that someone would welcome them for an intermediate period of time. So the case manager would secure that they have somewhere to go prior to the distribution of those funds, but that has greatly increased Norma Hare's likelihood of moving someone into housing, and as well as working with the open units that we do have available within our continuum and incentivizing to fill those slots.
Anything else you'd like to tell us? Question? Oh,
I
see
want
a
to follow
hand.
up, and actually that was my question, what are these incentives? It sounds like a stopgap measure in part to get them and transition the women out of the shelter to a friend or family. It doesn't sound like it's like a 12-month lease in an apartment that's not ready yet. So are you going to be gathering stats on what happens in that transitory time period?
Through the chair to Councilwoman, that's a great point, and you are absolutely right. This is something that we had creatively done during COVID to decrease census across all shelters, and we have kept tabs on those statistics across the way. I don't have Norma Hare numbers in front of me, but I can tell you LMM 2100 Men's Shelter was one of the main utilizers of this resource, and over 80% did not return to shelter. So we initially thought it was a stopgap measure, but what we have recognized is longitudinally now we're seeing that folks are not coming back. So this is a creative alternative way, no surprise, you could trust individuals with funds and they're figuring it out. So we've maintained this creative way of alternative housing post-pandemic.
To the director, I wasn't questioning, trusting the receivers of the
course.
funds. It was just, what's the opportunity then to launch into to
Absolutely.
more permanent housing?
I mentioned that because many communities have not accepted that method due to stereotypes or just,
Got it.
thinking that they can't folks can't self-resolve, but we believe that
That's
our community
interesting.
is- yes.
Because it appears to be a stopgap on
Yeah.
the surface, but it sounds like we're investing enough to make a
we've
more
had some
permanent.
success.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
people sometimes just need funds from a third party. They can't scrape it together themselves. Their family doesn't have enough to give them. There's not a spare $2,000 or $3,000 laying around somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah. And flexible funds at that.
Madam Chair, if I may, this body heard and the full council approved a couple of months ago a allocation of emergency rental assistance to funds to Eden in the amount of $10 million. So that is further incentive. That provides security deposit and rent for a number of months. And those are also folks who go through the continuum are eligible for those funds.
And, Director, do they get coaching when they're taking these funds? Is there someone they can rely on if they have questions on how to do things?
They are going through Eden, who is providing the full set of services, as well as, if I'm not mistaken, other continuum members who provide the housing stability and financial education programming all the time.
I didn't remember that it was 10 million. So where are we in the disbursement process? How much is still available?
Of that total ERA, 2-0, I have allocated all the funding for that 25 million. 10 million went to Eden, 10 million went to ESOP for seniors. There were some funds that went to legal aid, and then $3 million went to provide gap financing to affordable housing, because we are allowed to, Treasury gave us permission to use those funds for that purpose.
Director?
So it's always hard to follow up after Sarah when she talks about handing out 10 million here, 10 million there. It's the genius of her practice. But I also want to point out the fact that Director Simeon Best has now replicated this model. And so I think what has been established in our community, that it feels like a stopgap, I think is now extending out and becoming more of a network of resources. And so Simeon Best had some dollars from a delayed procurement, and he just pivoted them at the end of last year, giving them to Oriana House to help returning citizens not need to consider going to the shelter as they complete either time at a halfway house or as they're coming back, and go straight into housing. And generally it was replicating the success of what Melissa has launched and offering residents the ability to get some resources to do that security deposit, to do that first month's rent, to do whatever is necessary to get a resident that has returned to our community. I bring this up because we're on the eve of Reentry Week, which is next week. I know that Simeon is prioritizing this, and I think this is becoming a model that we're all committed to across programs and services.
I just wanted to say, Director Sirac, can we, I don't know if you can wait till after. I have a new initiative, and I just wanted to talk to you about in terms of the home. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly? Since I tend to look that way, I want to make sure I wasn't overlooking you. We're good. On behalf of my colleagues and myself, your work does not go unrecognized. Having been in a variation of the seats that y'all sit in, I understand personally how heartbreaking it can be sometimes not to have enough money to take care of the needs that we have in our community, and to see those needs growing against the best of our efforts. So thank you on behalf of my 10 colleagues and myself for the work you do every day. Sarah, what's the request?
The request, before we get to the request, I also want to thank both directors, Sirac and Merriman. The partnership that we have now forged, along with Director Simeon Best, so that we have a better understanding of the housing needs overall, and not just the bricks and mortar affordable, we're going to do a senior building, but the whole universe. They have taught me so much in the past year and a half, and I am exceptionally grateful. And part of that is how we got to requesting $7,925,678 for Norma Hurd.
Your request is for funding. Do you, since this is ARPA, do we need to do 3 full hearings, or do you want this as quickly as possible?
I would like this as quickly as possible. The home ARPA,
Does not have the same as the regular
No, it
ARPA
does not.
requirement for 3 full hearings.
no, and HUD approved our plan on June 14th of 2023, so we're anxious to show them, one, that we've allocated the money, and then help the project to move forward.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll gladly make a motion to move this to the full council under second reading suspension, and please add my name.
Second.
The motion was made by Councilwoman Conwell and seconded by Councilman Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing, any opposed?
No, but I'd like to add my name. And just a question to Director, if I can. What's changed the dynamic of being able now to take a more universal, holistic approach to this issue and from working in compartments before? Like, what has shifted? There's a shift. Is it you? Is it new energy? It just seems to be there is a shift, and I just don't know what. I mean, we've been here for 13 years, and somehow they've not been able to coordinate as you are now.
I would say it's 2 things. It is the creation of a separate department, allowing me to focus solely on housing issues, and the infusion of this funding from the federal government for things that were not, if I should say, in my normal course of
They were not a
work.
priority before.
No, and there were things that the Office of Homeless Services or the Office of Reentry did that I had no participation in, and now we do, and we're talking, and we're just looking at all areas. So I would say those are the 2.
Okay, we had a motion and it passed. And Mr. Kelly, did you want to add your name to this as well? And if you would add my name? So we're all in favor of this, moving it forward as expeditiously as possible.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackson, are you the batter up for the next one?
We did, yes.
We did.
Yeah.
Resolution
Brenda
2024-013.
didn't say anything.
Aye.
Resolution 2024-0132, awarding a total sum not to exceed $12,000 to the Swing Fi Swing Social Fellowship Incorporated, Greater Cleveland Chapter, for the Mentoring Achieves Positive Pearls Program from the District 7 ARPA Community Grant Fund.
Who's speaking to this issue this morning? If you would come to the podium and identify yourself with your name and your role with the agency.
Good morning. I'm Sherdina Williams, and I'm the president of the Cleveland chapter of the Swing Fi Swing Social Fellowship.
Welcome.
Thank
Tell
you.
us about your project.
Our project is a mentoring project. Swing has a national initiative where we mentor young ladies, and we call them Pearls. And so Swing has just entered the Cleveland area in July of 23. So we now have a Swing chapter in Cleveland, and we will be mentoring 20 to 25 girls in the FDR school district. We're initially had intended to just reach out to the girls in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grades. Where our mentoring is different, we follow these young ladies all the way through high school. So they may start off at FDR, but wherever they go, we know the girls will move and all. We will still continue to follow them until they graduate.
Sorry, this is part of a larger budget?
Yes.
Could you explain that for the record, please?
Yes, we work constantly to raise money to work with the girls because we have 4 main goals that we look at. We look at academic achievement, community service. We also look at mentoring the girls into leadership, civic, and also culture awareness. So we're always doing fundraising to support the girls in the community in different initiatives. What we have also identified, because we have pearls in different cities, that we need to expose the girls more to traveling also. And since cultural awareness is one of our big goals, we want to take the city girls to the south so they can meet with Pearls in Charleston area. And then since civic engagement, we want to take the girls to DC so they can also see how things work and meet with the Pearls in DC. So that is, this year, the biggest would be for transportation for the girls.
Okay. Do any of my colleagues have questions?
I don't have questions, Madam Chair, since this is something that I'm supporting wholeheartedly, but I wanted to say there was a little mix-up on our end. There was research done on the high cost of everything today in terms of busing and what the bus costs to get these ladies where they are. And so Ms. Williams had resent me another application, but our staff had went on and.
We need to amend this?
Yes, so I would like to amend this to increase it to 15,000, which is just a $3,000 increase.
Excuse me a minute. Mr. McClear, do I see you at the back of the room, or is that someone who looks like you? So it's really Trevor McClear sitting at the back of the room. Ma'am, if you would step to the side so our staff could address this finance issue. Mr. McClear?
Good morning, committee, Trevor McClear, County Council staff. I was talking to Councilwoman Conwell about this before, and I believe the request is for 3,000 additional dollars. So we can, I would ask if we could do that at the council meeting, if that's okay. We'll work and get a new agreement in place with a new dollar amount, and we'll get a substitute going for the next council meeting. If that's
Okay, so we do not have to do a
We
substitute.
don't have to do it here.
We can, I would prefer not, but it's obviously the committee's
Okay,
discretion. It's
whatever
just
you
easier
prefer.
for staff to go get the paperwork done, and then we can do it at the
Okay.
council meeting.
Then we will allow that to happen. Thank you for point of clarification.
I just wanted to get that on the record, Madam
Okay,
Chair, and
if-
why.
If we have a motion?
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Under the impact of the project, it says will be served. It says the program will serve senior citizens at community centers. Can you explain how that works?
Yes, the girls will be engaged in performing different variety of community services. And one of the things that we really believe strongly in is intergenerational mix. So the girls will be going and primarily in their own communities. We want to teach them to work in your own community, serve your own communities. So they will be interacting with seniors and doing different health initiatives, whatever the initiatives that we have going on in the community, the girls will be front, center, a part of it and working with.
I think that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're making a motion?
I'll make a motion to move this to the full council under second reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion was made by Conwell, second by Simon. Any conversation? Hearing no conversation, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, congratulations. This will go to the full council for 3 readings. Madam Clerk?
There are no other matters for consideration today.
Thank you. Thank you to my colleagues for your attendance and your work with me on these community development activities. Hearing no further business before us, this meeting is adjourned.